Welcome everybody. It's really a great pleasure to kick off this Sunday programming here, and this is the second year that the TEFAF programming have invited ICOMCC, that's the International Council of Museums, Committee for Conservation, to participate. And our two organizations have a great overlap, and that's the preservation and conservation of museum objects. So it's really with great pleasure today that I, as chair of ICOMCC, can welcome the winners of this year's 2023 TEFAF Museum Art Restoration Fund prize, and that is the Museum of Fine Arts in Antwerp, and the painting that they will be focusing on for the next few months, I think. So we have here Gwen Barnes, who is the conservator at the Museum of Fine Arts in Antwerp. We have the director, Carmen Williams, who is, I think, going to tell us a little bit about the museum. And we have a very wonderful colleague from the University of Amsterdam, teaching program on conservation, Natalia Gustafsson. Perhaps I'm going to just start with Carmen and ask you, and that's me, there's Carmen here, to tell a little bit about the museum and why you selected this painting for the prize.
Yes. Welcome to all of you, and of course we are also very happy to be here, and I also want to first express my gratefulness to all the people who made this possible to be here on this talk. But of course we are very happy winners of this restoration fund, which is very important for the museum. But perhaps first a few words about the museum, because I met this morning already some people who were asking. This museum has been closed quite a while, and that's true. So the museum has reopened on the 24th of September last year, and we have been closed for 11 long years. So it was quite a big renovation and extension on the museum, and we have a nice stand on this fair, and there you see a little movie of the museum. So I would advise you to see some more pictures of the museum. In fact, what is this museum about? We present 7 centuries of fine arts, masterpieces, a lot of Flemish primitives. This is why this museum is very world known, but we also have quite important and nice collection of modernists. And in the old museum, there was a lack of space. So the Flemish government, the museum, it's always a little bit complicated in Belgium. The name of the museum is Royal Museum of Fine Arts, but in fact we belong to the Flemish government. The Flemish government decided in 2004 already to go for a master plan for this site. It was a Dutch architect, Kaan architect Dickie Scipio, who did the realization of the master plan. And what she decided was not only to renovate the existing 19th century building, but she also added a new volume. And she did it in a very special way. In this way, we got 2 museums for 1 prize. It took a little bit longer, but it's a very nice building. And we decided with the museum team to present our modernist collection in the new part of the building and our old masters in the old part of the building. But in some ways, we do some transhistoric dialogues, which make it a very special experience to see the collection presentation. We worked a lot on it. We wanted to be a museum to attract a broad public, also young public, diverse public, also people without any knowledge about arts. So we wanted really to be an open house for everyone. And we worked hard on the collection presentation and all the stories told that we tell in the collection presentation. It's too complicated to explain all. We worked hard on the different layers of information, but in a way that people don't feel like it's needed to attract a lot of knowledge, but more that the museum becomes a real nice experience. That's what we worked hard about. And the museum opened at the end of September. We had 400 visitors in only 5 months, so which is quite a number for this museum, which used to have approximately 150,000 visitors a year. And numbers, they don't tell everything. What is more is that we see that people really get excited visiting this museum, that they feel it as a very nice experience, and that they even want to come back and come back and come back. And also with children, we really have this effect. So that makes us, I think, very happy, Gwen. So I think as an introduction, this is already...
I think so. And I think I can just encourage everybody to see the short film that is showing in the art restoration booth downstairs in the TEFAF floor. If you wander around the corridors, you'll come across it. And there's a wonderful little couple of minutes piece that shows the museum off in its full glory. And we did have some other slides about the introductions, but I'm going to skip to this one because I think we're all interested in the painting. And the painting is by a female artist, and perhaps, Gwen, you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Michaelina Wautier is actually like a 17th century Belgian artist. She is from Mons, but she went to live in Brussels together with her younger brother. And they, in fact, lived in a big house where they painted together, but also other artists came to the studio and worked with them. She became, I think, 85, which is very old for that time. And being a woman in the 17th century who painted also is extraordinary, actually. I mean, it's not given to many, and especially what defines her from other artists, because there were other female artists in that time, is that she actually had subjects that were supposed to be for men, like religious subjects that women couldn't paint, but she did it. And this is an example of it, because it's Dorothea and Agnes on the picture, and it's a religious scene, of course. Another thing that says something about her is that she had a certain status as well, because she was in real estate together with her brother, and in archives there's actually papers with her signatures on that she bought houses and sold them again, which tells something about she had money, that's for sure. So she wasn't poor like many artists were. About the painting, yeah, well, so it's a religious subject, and it is thought it might be two sisters. There's no proof for that, but they look quite similar. And special about the paintings as well, that they don't look at each other, so they look away from each other, which is special as well. So on the right, you have Agnes with the lamb, and she's actually special because she doesn't feel like wearing jewelry or dressing up, or so. She's very simple in life compared to other women. And then you have Dorothea on the other side, and you can see she's already wearing a necklace and stuff. There is a story about Dorothea that when she died, when she was slaughtered, actually, she told the how you call it, not the butcher, but
Executioner.
the executioner. She told him that she would prove God existed by sending him a basket full with apples. And so he laughed and he killed her anyway. But short time after that, he received a basket with apples in front of his door, and he was very surprised and became very religious at that time. So that's a little bit the story behind this painting. About conservation, maybe something. This painting came to the collection in 1810. It came before, it was in the Bishop's Palace, and then it came to the École Centrale du Département des Deux-Net, which closed quite soon after it was elected. So I think it started in 1795 or something, and it closed already in 1802, which is a short period, of course. And then from this school, it came to the museum in 1810. So since then, we have it in our collection. It's not being showed all the time because she wasn't really important for a long time. She was forgotten for a long time. Actually, after she died, it came quite soon that everybody forgot about her. And also, like, male artists claimed her work, like I painted it, because it's so stunning. She has a stunning technique, very self-confident, very, you know, there's no underdrawing scene on this one, so she knew what she was doing. Very controlled technique. So in that sense, she's a master of what she's doing. And there's no real archive or information about where she studied or something, so maybe she learned it herself or she learned it from the other artist in the house, so we don't know that for sure. But it is stunning, her technique, and so she became very famous for a very long time, and then we had this exhibition, which is from Michaelina Wautier, who organized the exhibition. But that's like 10 years ago, something. So, and since that exhibition, she became important again. Everybody focused on her work again and became curious. Who is she? What was she doing? And then now we are sitting here because it's back in the gallery rooms, having a lot of attention in the meantime. But
I think she's really one of those artists, female artists, that it's important they regained so much more attention, and this one is a good example of it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
often when we have painters like this who fall out of favor, then their artworks are a little bit less cared for. And I mean, maybe tell a little bit about what's happened to the painting over the time that is there. And I see that you've got some images of the surface at the moment, which are a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about why they appear like this.
Okay, yeah. Well, in 1962, we had a family of Bender in the museum, which were conservators as well of their time. And they decided to line the painting in 1962. And they lined it with wax resin. And I don't know if you know wax resin, but you need to melt it, in fact. So they used an iron to put a second canvas at the back of it.
A little there.
Yes, that gives a better idea. So you have the original canvas, and they put another canvas at the back of it with an iron and wax resin. Well, this was a treatment that was carried out often in that time. In this case, in the archive, they say that the canvas was in a very bad state. There were no tears or holes in it, but it was in a very bad state. And there were deformations, and they were afraid that if they would stretch the canvas again, that it would tear. So that was the reason they set on paper they wanted to line it. The thing with lining and wax resigning using heat is that it's quite dangerous, because if you keep the iron for too long on one place, you can burn the paint layer. And that is exactly what we can see on this one. You see, this is a detail where the painting actually is burnt, and it is a heat mark. It's in the lower right corner. We didn't saw that in other places, especially in that corner. So maybe they started there and then they realized, oh, it's too hot or something, and we're gonna put it down a little bit. Another interesting thing is the macro XRF scan. Maybe for those who doesn't know what a macro XRF scan is, it's actually like a scanner who measures like heavy metals inside pigments. So we are able to identify certain pigments, not all, like organic pigments. It's impossible, but we can like lead white and vermilion and stuff like that, which gives us a better idea of the pigments used by an artist, or also give us an idea what is original and not, because if certain pigments are used on the 17th century that only existed in the 19th century, we can already tell it's like an overpaint or a retouching. So it gives us a lot of information. In this case, it gives us more information about the edges, because the edges you can see, oh, we went away again.
This one?
Yeah, this one. Yeah, so the white stripe along the edge that you can see is actually calcium, and calcium is a filling. So we can see that or the edges are damaged or they were cut off. To know more about it, we should examine the painting more and frame it and look at the other edges and remove the paper, because now the edges are taped with brown paper. So we need to do that first. And that we will start the treatment in May, the beginning of May. It will be carried out by Kat Snijders, a private conservator. And then we can examine it more. Yeah. So.
I know you're a conservator as well. It's unfortunate Kat could not be here today, but we have Natalia, who is a painting conservator, and she's teaching at the University of Amsterdam, especially focusing on this sort of area of study where it comes into the collection, so the history of artworks in the Napoleonic times. And perhaps you could sketch a little bit of an idea of what could have happened before the 1960s lining.
Thank you, Kate. So, in fact, the date of 1810 might be quite of an indicator that something happened before the wax resin line we see here, meaning that it was in some kind of redistribution of artworks around Europe. And if that was the case, I think we can be quite sure that there was another lining before, but not a wax resin lining, but maybe a paste glue lining. So, in fact, we are probably looking at a painting that went through a cycle of linings, and could also correspond to the damage we see here of the laminations, and that might also be the initial reason why a lining was applied. So, if you go back to the second,
This one?
no, of the linings, how lining was applied. So on the left side, we see a Florentine glue paste lining, which is not the one that was applied in the Napoleonic times, but it's the same principle. So you have a second canvas on the back side of the painting that was applied with a paste glue. And actually, in this case, you work from the front side, but with the wax resin lining, this was state of the art for a very long time in the Netherlands and also in Belgium. You were able to work from the back side, but also from the front side. So we don't know if 1962 he worked from the back or the front side, but this was state of the art at the time. And the legacy of this wax resin lining is that you're actually limited in substances that you can use to treat the painting again, because the wax resin is penetrating to the whole package of layers of the painting, which makes it very hydrophobic. So you're not able to use a glue to consolidate losses. So you're very limited in your treatments. Yeah.
I mean, the painting does look in very good structural condition. So I don't know if you have any idea at the moment with your initial pre-study if it will need retreatment with lining. But I think the latest study is also that these legacy paintings, and I know your collection is full of them, with wax resin linings, have also problems with cleaning and consolidation. So we're very keen to see after May when you start the treatment, and I hope you'll be giving TEFAF updates on the treatment. And I know that next year there will be a little film that will come with some of the treatment steps in it. But do you have any other aspects that you are really keen to research? Or?
Yeah, well, an interesting thing for us is actually that in the background, if we took the macro XRF scans, we saw that there was because actually the background for her quality that she has as a painter is quite flat. And with the macro XRF scans, you can see here, it's the quick and the LED images. Mercury. Sorry about the images. And you can see that, in fact, there is a red layer underneath. And for us, it seems like the curtain first went more in the background of the two girls. And maybe we don't know because we don't see if it's an overpaint or not. It doesn't seem to be an overpaint, and it can be, of course, an original decision by the artist itself that she painted first the curtain all the way down, and then she decided like, oh no, it's not working, it's too close to the figures, I'm gonna just put a darker area around the figures so they light up a little bit more. So we don't know for sure it's a later intervention or it is an original intervention of the artist herself in this case. So that will be something interesting to examine more while we are treating it, and we hope we will find answers to that, of course. But I think you can see that the drapery becomes, especially in the third one, that there is like folds, more folds in it than we can see on the original. And maybe we can see the original picture again. You see that there's not so many folds or differences in the background of the reds. So, yeah, very curious about this.
So, Natalia, with your study of this redistribution of artworks, obviously many paintings would have been restored at that time. I mean, was there a different approach to conservation in the early 1800s?
Very different.
Yeah?
So the reason why the lining was invented or used in the first time was to make the surface more flat. Yeah. So there was a totally different aesthetic view on paintings, not the one that we have today, luckily. But it's important to understand that what they were doing at that time, they thought they were doing something good. So they really wanted to preserve the paintings. And for this reason, a lot of paintings were lined and treated in that way, which also means that today we have a lot of paintings that have these linings and the subsequent problems or damages that we're dealing with. And especially because you showed the edges of the... If you have something like that, so you have to imagine if you want to stretch a painting again for any reason that it was coming off from the stretcher because it was rolled or transported somewhere, you have to apply some tension on the edges. And if you don't have enough space, that means you cannot stretch the painting. And that would have been actually a reason enough for a lining, meaning gluing a bigger canvas on the back side and then having enough space to stretch it.
And what sort of treatments would they have done to prepare for the lining? Would they have done cleaning or...
That would have happened afterwards, actually. So it's the structural conservation was the first part. I mean, in some cases, maybe consolidation would have been nice, but they did not do that.
So, and this painting at the time, I mean, we're talking that it's much younger then. Yeah. So then the paint layers are a little bit more sensitive. Yes. And could damage have happened to the painting when it was being cleaned at that
Of
stage?
course, yes. So you're referring to the changes we're seeing in the background. Of course, that could have happened. So if you go back, I don't know which direction. Yes. So, of course, we are speculating here. Yes. So we don't know what's happened. Could also be some changes in the pigments. I don't know. But at that time, so the conservation was divided in the structural part and then in the more aesthetic, artistic work that was done, often also by two different people, and they were doing massive overpaintings, actually, what we are calling today massive overpaintings. At that time, they were thinking they were doing something good, and they wanted the painting to look at its best. So it could very well be that a painter, restorer, was overworking this background. But since we don't know, we don't have any cross-sections for now.
It's interesting, it's a different color.
Yes.
So the color underneath is a different tone completely than the color on top.
Yes.
And that's also not unheard of, that
No.
artists would have
They would have also
repainted and-
changed according to what the audience would want to see. So shifting of colors would also have been possible, or hiding of parts that were not didn't
So
want
it
to
makes
see.
it very interesting detective
Yeah.
to see whether it's the artist itself who's done this,
Yeah.
or that it's part of the history.
Yes, exactly. The research
Yeah.
on. Oh, sorry.
No. I have a question. How sure are we that our techniques, actual act techniques, will in over 100 years will be seen as the good ones?
Yeah, that's a very important
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we try not to touch a painting or touch it as less as possible nowadays, I think. Because if we are more self-conscious about what can go wrong, and I also think not doing anything is sometimes better than doing a lot of things altogether. But of course, you want to see the painting as well, and you want to enjoy the painting as well. So after a certain time, you need to do something. There's no way back. And that's why, like research, doing research, I think the focus now these days are more on research than it used to be in the 60s or the 70s. So in that sense, I think we are more prepared to touch a painting, and that we are more, thinking.
You explain me sometimes something about reversible things you do.
Yes.
we
Reversibility.
So we use nowadays we use reversible materials, because it used to be they used to think we use the same material as the artist did, because then it fits. But in fact, using oil paint on an oil paint painting means that it will darken and it will become very hard to remove. And that's problems that we are dealing with nowadays, because you need to get the oil paint off again, because it gets really disturbing. The color doesn't fit the painting anymore. So you will have to remove it. And often the only way to remove it is with a scalpel. And so you need a microscope. It's very intensive work. You need a microscope, a scalpel. There's this risk damaging the painting all the time. So it is a kind of a bad thing for us now, today. That's why we use reversible materials, not only to avoid the risks for the next generation, but also for distinguish the difference in what we added and what is original to the painter.
But
Is that a limitation in possibilities at the same time? That it should be reversible in terms of that otherwise you might use other techniques which would not be reversible, but offer more possibilities in technical sense?
Well, I think it's an interesting question in that sense that we always talk about reversible materials, but in fact, a retouching can be reversible, because we add something, you can take it off. But there are other methods or techniques.
For instance, consolidation.
Consolidation. It is, we always say reversible, but it isn't actually reversible. Because what are you going to do? Take out the glue again, or get the paint loose again? I mean, so there is a contradiction in it.
So if I may jump in, the wax resin lining, for instance, is not reversible.
No.
Because the whole substance penetrated to all of the paint layers.
Exactly.
And if you would remove the second line from the canvas from the back, you would actually have to put something there again. So, and you cannot remove all the rest of the lining medium.
No.
So,
And in actual fact, removing the lining medium could also cause problems,
Yes.
because it's functioning as an adhesive, keeping the damaged paint flakes in place.
and
So
it also makes the painting vulnerable against solvents that would normally have been used, for instance, to remove an overpainting. So the paint is the canvas and the painting are reacting differently than without the lining. So that's also something to keep in mind. This whole package of.
So I think, you're very much a conservator practicing on the whole collection, and I think it's something that, as a collection care, that's a big challenge to think about the whole collection. How do you know the numbers of the artworks that have been treated in the past? I mean, we talked a little bit about numbers earlier, and they don't really represent things. But you know, this is a problem as a director when you're looking at the whole collection care aspect.
Of course, yes. I think we did quite a good job on that because the restoration studio only started early 90s. And then we had, of course, all this operation of having a new museum. And we did over 200 restoration. We made 200 masterworks, have been restored completely the past years. So it's quite a lot. And we did, of course, hundreds and hundreds more of conservation treatments. So my thank goes to there are a lot of, some of the restorators of the studio are in, so thank you for that, because they did quite a job. We had a very nice restoration studio outside of the building while being closed, and actually the restoration studio is integrated in the museum. And what is interesting, I think also for the public, is that there is glass, and people can watch the restorators being busy with the restoration of the painting, so which makes it also very accessible for everyone. And I agree, it's hard work. It would nothing be for me.
So maybe just as a final call out for your wonderful painting, will this be also restored in view of the public?
Yes,
at the
of
museum?
course. Yes. So it's a huge glass. How do you say it? Wall, and so people can watch. Yes. Yes. So be welcome.
Yeah.
From May, will you start end of May?
Beginning of May.
Beginning of May.
Yeah.
So, and it will take how long? Do we know when?
Well, it needs to finish at the end of October. So
Yes.
half a year, around approximately half a year.
And to see this very important work for the museum, what we were not able to do was the big altar pieces couldn't be restored while the museum was closed, because we had to keep those altar pieces in the museum during all those construction works. So they were set in an internal storage. So we brought them back on the galleries, and what you see now is that we have the collection is really in good shape, actually, but some of the altar pieces are not. So we will start with public restoration of the altar pieces in the galleries. And the big altar piece, one of the biggest one we have, will be restored from end of October. I think we will start with that one in the gallery. So it brings a little bit the work of the important work of the restoration studio quite in with the public, which makes it nice, and people understand more why it takes so much time and why it's important to have all this scientific research before starting in such a process.
Well, I'm very excited to come to visit your museum, and I'm very pleased that conservation is getting a showcase in many, many museums, especially yours. So I'd just like to round off by saying thank you very much. Thank you to the TEFAF Restoration Fund for inviting this conversation on conservation. Simona, I did it too. And thank you to Gwen and Carmen and Natalia for your wonderful conversation with ICOMCC.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.